Hello, everybody, and welcome again to iHLS Innotech International Conference. In this segment, we have the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Avi Blasberger, Director of Israel's Space Agency in the Ministry of Science and Technology. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Yaakov.
First of all, exciting news. There's an Israeli astronaut on the way to space. What's about that?
So it's really exciting. It's a new news. The second Israeli is going to space. It's actually a private astronaut. He's going to the ISS, the International Space Station, but he's going to do there scientific and technology experiments, and of course a lot of education to the Israeli people.
Where, when, on which platform?
It's planned to be at the end of 2021. Of course, space sometime delayed a bit. It's on a private platform of SpaceX. He's going with a company called Axiom that has a right to send people, private astronauts, to the ISS.
In cooperation with the Israeli government, with your?
The Israeli government will be involved in the scientific and educational part.
Is this what we're going to see in space a lot? Private companies sending people to commercial? It's just commercial flights, that's it?
Commercial flights already exist. As you know, not lately, NASA is sending their astronaut with SpaceX. They are paying for the seats.
Right.
So it's a commercial flight.
Right. And how do you see this cooperation between private companies and governments on the space programs?
So government is outsourcing whatever they can, meaning even flight to the ISS, in the future maybe communication from the moon. However, the big things still will be done by the government themselves.
Right. It seems that space brings a lot of good things. Among them, international cooperation. We've seen a lot of international cooperation in space, maybe less so on the ground of the Earth, but in space it somehow works, right?
So space is one of the areas that cooperation is very important. And since space is regarded the high end, everybody is interested in. For example, one of the first things that we are talking with the United Arab Emirates is a cooperation in space. As you know, even the Russian and the American were cooperating in space during the time that the American couldn't fly astronauts to the ISS. Only the Russian took them to the ISS.
Right. The wonders of space internationally. If we're talking about cooperation in space, I want to ask you, what is Israel planning for space? What is Israel looking for in space in general terms?
First, Israel is in space more than 32 years. The first Israeli satellite, even though it was defense satellite, it was launched in '88. Israel was the 8th country in the world that have the entire chain of capability of space, meaning launching, designing, developing, building, and operating a satellite. So Israel has a long heritage. And now when the space is growing and more commercialized, it will be pity not to use this heritage and to be more commercial.
We've been talking a lot about startups here in this conference, and space is expensive. We know that. It's not easy. Do you have Israeli startups that are interested in space per se?
So in the next session, there will be Israeli startup that interested in space. And of course, since it is very expensive and the time to market is very long, there is a need of government support. However, in the later stages, it's fully commercial.
Fully commercial. So there's an upside for startups and private companies as well. So 10, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, where do you see Israel in space?
With a lot of startups, many people working in that. It's not only in space, but most of the money coming from space is in the application on ground. And Israel is very strong in that as well. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, quantum, and all of that. Part of that, or all of that, is on ground, and part of that is in space. And Israel have a lot of advantages in that.
So we need a lot of patience. Avi Blasberger, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.